a gavel, we have a Coke.
I wouldn't open that right now.
Sorry, don't open it yet, let us get through that. Good morning, everyone. I feel like we should almost reintroduce ourselves because it hasn't been a while since we've been here, but we forgot who each other is, the nameplates are in front of each person. So welcome, especially those who have traveled in this wonderful weather. But hopefully by the time we leave, it might get a little pretty. So we will begin with roll call.
Ms. LaRiviere?
Here.
Dr. Baker?
Here.
Ms. Chasson?
Here.
Ms. Gonzalo?
Here.
Dr. Houston? Present. Ms. Moise? Here. Dr. Palmisano? In attendance, Ms. Patrick? Here. And Sister Carol?
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And so now we'd like to go around the room and have our guests introduce themselves. Come back to people. Why don't we start on this side and then we'll piggyback.
Hi, my name is Ishana Sanders. I work with the Nonpublic office with the Student Scholarship Program.
Hi, my name is Teacher Golden. I as well work with the Nonpublic office.
Thomas Rock, Superintendent Catholic School, Diocese of Alexandria, and Babette.
Keith Leger, Department of Ed. Max Stamp, Department of Ed. Bernal Cook, Executive Director, Department of Ed.
Good morning, Ashley Townsend, Department of Ed. Daphne Playboy, Department of Ed, State Ombudsman.
Kenya Jenkins, Department of Ed, Federal Support and Grantee Relations.
Kay Brumley, Department of Ed.
Lucia Timmel, I work for Kay.
That's the best way to say it.
Sharon E. Case, Department of Ed, ditto.
Samantha Chasson, Department of Ed.
Sean Diamond, Department of Ed.
Oh, you did? I didn't hear your name. I must have been too now. Sorry. Is that it? All around the room? Great. Thanks for all of you being here. I know Dr. Brumley was on TV this morning because as I woke up at 5 something, he was bright and shining on TV. So I'm sure you've been up since 3 o'clock.
That's right.
Well, you all should have received the minutes. So I need a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Carroll, second. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa. All in favor? Aye. Great. So the first item on our agenda,
Consideration of an update report regarding the emergency assistance for non-public schools, the EAMS program. Motion to receive.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
you ready for it? I thought it was going to be burning out.
All right, good morning. Kenya Jenkins again with the Division of Federal Support and Grantee Relations. I'm going to give you your federal programs update this morning. All right, so EAMS. We hadn't seen each other in a while, so I know you want an update here. All right, so 180 of our schools submitted budget applications through the EAMS program. So that was information you already had. LDOE has completed and approved all requested reimbursements. So for Cursor EAMS, there was a reimbursement allowable portion. All of those have been completed by the agency. LDOE, the Office of Technology Services, are still actively working to procure the approved future procurement requested items. So we know there are some non-publics that may not have gotten all of their items yet, specifically some IT items. I think I've seen air purifiers and different items like that. They were of course on back order. So as they come in, the agency is getting those items out to the schools. So the LDOE will fulfill all eligible future procurement requests to the best of their ability based on available, approved, and contracted Louisiana Department of Education vendors. With permission from the U.S. Department of Education, the procurement team is still working to process future procurement requests. So as we speak, they are still working to get items in for the non-public schools. They have approximately, and I think it's lower now, it's about 4 million instead of 4.6 when we initially did the slides, in EANS funding remaining that they are still utilizing and still procuring these items. So the number of schools that requested reimbursements, 149 in their applications, which came to about $10.8 million. So that was the amount of reimbursements that actually have been paid out for cursor EANS. The number of schools with those future procurement requests were 173. So those are still being worked for those that have items that have not been procured yet. We just wanted to give you an example of the types of items that are being procured. So again, most of you know, many of them requested technology. A lot of them requested iPads, laptops, workstations for students. Also things like to go along with that are your cases for protecting those items, charging carts, different softwares that are needed, and so on and so forth for all of the non-publics. Now, ARP EANS is which we refer to the second installment of EANS. Just a little update here, the department has not received an approved application from the U.S. Department of Education yet to move forward with ARP EANS. We have been in constant communication with them as early as last week, I believe, and we are working to get an approved application so we can begin launch of ARP EANS. We will begin outreach to the non-public schools as soon as we have a GAN from the U.S. Department of Education, where we will then move forward to release that application process, which will be similar to the cursor EANS application process. So we're not going to throw anything new at them. It's going to be very similar, something they're familiar with, and so we should have a very smooth transition to ARP EANS. And I think that's my last slide. Questions?
Just with EANS in general, I appreciate the process, and it was, hurry to get everything in. July 3rd, I think, was the date, so we rushed to get everything in, and we are just now this week receiving some of the materials and supplies. Most of the software that we ordered for our computers and the ebooks for the children, they've not been received and uploaded yet, and there's a disconnect, I think, and it's no fault of anyone, I think it's just the world that we live in today, that the vendors didn't have a SANS number and they didn't understand how it worked with a third party. It's just been very convoluted and hard for us to deal with the vendors. So long story short, our students don't have the software yet, and it's January, the end of January, we asked for 2 years. So will that 2-year period be extended since we don't have most of the software downloaded and available to our students and teachers yet?
To my knowledge, it probably will not be extended, and I'll say that only because we haven't been given any information from the U.S. Department of Education on extending the period of availability for the grant. A lot of that really has to do with the backlogs in IT, in pretty much all things IT. Just again, for the state that we're living in right now. So through no fault of anyone, as you mentioned, it's just that the items aren't there. They're making them as quick as they can.
This is a software, this is downloaded software for ebooks, so they were all there. It was just not communicated timely, I think. This is not something purchased.
I think everything that you just said, I'm nodding my head to. I think it was an issue of processes not being worked out.
Yes.
And so now our kids are gonna have 6 months less of this software or these books access, which defeats the purpose of the funding. So it's just really frustrating. And again, not your fault. And I know this is new to everybody. The other question I had was about items. So my school's listed items that they would like to purchase in order of priority. Some of the items at the top of the list, they haven't received any information about if they've been approved for those things. And some of the items at the very bottom of the list, they have restarted receiving. So how was it determined which items would be procured or not? And they don't know what they're getting until it shows up at the school.
And that is
right?
true. And
So
that is-
is there a better way of communicating? Because, you know, we're trying to buy picnic tables and things so that kids can eat outdoors, but we don't want to buy anything because we're waiting to see what Eames is going to cover. It's just very, very frustrating. And in the meantime, we're just like waiting.
I understand, and that is in just our conversations that we've had with our, I say procurement team, but it's really one, so she's the team. They began looking at holistically, what can we get versus what we can't get. And that's how they began prioritizing how they would get items. And it was based upon the availability of the item. They didn't want to hold up the school's entire transaction because of the priority when they could actually get those items in. And some things which probably was technology toward the top were things that were on back order that they weren't able to get at that time. So we do understand, and believe me, the procurement team themselves are very frustrated in the process. And it's just a matter of being able to get what they can from the different vendors and companies and work with them. I know our OTS folks who handled all of the IT, they were working pretty much 7 days a week, trying to get items in before this kind of backlog started. And I don't think they've had any reprieve as of yet as to things starting to really flow back in. So we do understand, and it's just kind of something that we've had to get accustomed to, unfortunately. If you have specific schools that you might want us to look into, if you email it to me, and here's our information. If you email it to us, we can then try to get with them to see where they are in the process of that school's actual application and their items.
Okay.
So that may be of some help to me.
And just the information you just gave is very helpful. Like I have leaders calling and they're not getting any answers. They're emailing and they're not getting a response. So just that information, me being able to go back to convey that to them is going to be helpful to calm them a little bit because they have some information and they're not just,
And we're trying to get them items as quick as they can get out there. So they really are, and that's why I say the one. She really is, she didn't want to stop. So when we thought we had to stop initially, and then Ed said, hey, you can continue, we are continuing until they tell us we can't do anything.
And we appreciate all that y'all are doing. I know that it's nobody's desire to make things difficult. It's just, sitting there on the other end, it's just, frustrating.
I know it's like, okay, when is something coming? And then you get a whole bunch of stuff one day and it's like, oh, great, but then when is the rest of my stuff coming?
And then last question, is this gonna be treated like, restart equipment? So like we still have restart equipment in the Archdiocese of New Orleans that is on our fixed asset inventory, or after 3 years, do we return the materials?
Well, Ed has not given us any definitive information on whether they will want us to, initially, of course, they say we're gonna collect those things, but we know as we get closer to the end time that information may change. So as soon as we get any kind of closeout information from them, we'll definitely communicate it to you guys.
Thank you.
Burnett?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'd just like to add that, first of all, thank you all for your patience. This was a new adventure for us as a state agency in providing direct services to non-public schools. And I just want to say we do welcome, though, some of the things and the issues that you're dealing with. Not that we can solve them all, but one of the things we use the first iteration of Eames is a learning experience for us as well. We are predicting that the second iteration will go much smoother, but we welcome again what you're dealing with. And some things we may be able to tweak and do a little better, for the second iteration of it and everything. So thanks again, and the team, I can't iterate enough what Kenya has spoken in terms of how everyone is diligently working, trying to get you and your schools what they've ordered, and so that you can get the kids the resources that they need to be successful.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I need a motion to receive the report. Any opposed? Are you going to speak to the number 2, 3, or 2?
The next item is consideration of an update report regarding the Education Excellence Fund, EEF. The motion that we're asking is to defer this item and to place it on the March agenda, but Mr. Cook will give you the reason why that is. Can we get a motion?
Well, I'll make a motion. Second. Ms. Louise.
All right, so, E, we've reviewed all applications and we've taken them to the, across the street to be approved. So we're in a posture right now of making the funds available. However, we don't, which is what you really need, have that date yet. And so that's why we're deferring it. We have our team that's collaborating right now to give you a more definitive time frame on that. So we should have that information available for you for the next meeting.
And if that information comes in prior to that, will it be communicated some other way?
Absolutely, we can share it with you or however you desire for us to get it out.
Because our next meeting's not the March 25th, and it will be out before then.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah, but we'll definitely get it to you.
March 5th and Sunday.
All right?
Anybody opposed? Yeah, that's the fun. Our next item, consideration of an update report regarding the Louisiana Scholarship Program. I need a motion to receive. Dr. Mel, second. Michelle. Chasson. Oh, okay. You're on, Deidre. Come on. You're pretty red.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Deidre Golden, and I'm standing in today for Christine. She had a family emergency, so I will be presenting for the Louisiana Scholarship Program. Okay, on the agenda today, we will talk about the 2021-2022 data update, as well as the application process for the 2022-2023 school year, as well as program improvements and new initiatives. So we're gonna roll straight into the data update. So currently in the Louisiana Scholarship Programs, we have 127 schools participating. For our quarter two enrollment, we had 5,701 students enrolled. We should have more students, we should have more of an increase in the student count, but currently right now we're going through some of the tuition reimbursements because they were not reported for Q2. So we're waiting to get that information back from our finance department so that we can move forward with that. So that number should increase. Currently, the total allocation for that program is $41,178,680, and that does include the 5% tuition increase that was applied to all the schools. So currently, the non-public annual enrollment was due for October 15, 2021. The portal has been reopened 3 times in an effort to get all schools to report. So we recently closed that NPS portal on January 24th, 2022, after numerous attempts. We still have 12 non-public schools that have not reported. So we're still trying to work with them to get that completed. We have reached out emails, we have reached out to other departments to help us to try to get them. Yes, ma'am.
If any of them are mine,
Okay.
let me know.
Okay, we will pull the list, Ms. Sanders will pull the list and we'll get it to you to make sure, because it's just 12.
The same thing.
The same, okay. We'll send out a list.
For the Catholic diocese, just tell them.
Okay, and normally I try to always include the superintendents when I'm sending out emails, because most of the times I get a lot more responses, or they really hop on it once I start putting you all on there, so most definitely. Okay, so we had 328 schools that did report, so we was very, very happy about that. So the total enrollment for this year was 106,145. And for last year, we did have a definite increase because it was 104,650. So that's a big improvement.
Is that seats available?
No, that's seats that's currently occupied. So next, we're going to move into our Louisiana Scholarship Program application. So currently, right now, but keep in mind before I begin, the dates with asterisks, those are dates that could possibly change, but in our department, we are trying not to move the dates. We're trying to change that completely. We don't like moving dates because once we do, that throw a lot of things off. So the application opened, for statewide applications, it opened, December 13th, and for Orleans Parish, it opened November the 11th. The notice of intent confirmation for grade levels and counts of new students, that needed to be into us by 12/15. Income and residency verification, that happens when the application closes, which for Orleans Parish, that was on January 21st. And for statewide, that is on the 28th of this month. It will close completely. Okay, so school training webinar on roster verification, registration, and enrollment, that will happen mid-March. The main round verification for all rosters, that's gonna happen between April 4th and April the 8th. Again, we're trying not to change that date. Parent notification letters will be sent out on somewhere in between April the 11th and April 30th. So they have a pretty good time span for that. So site registration will end on May 20th. The spring registration workbook to decline awards for non-registered students, that will be on June the 8th. And then the transfer window, if they need to transfer schools after they have accepted the scholarship, that will happen between June 15th and July 18th. So next, the application process. Schools are not allowed to implement admissions criteria for scholarship applicants. All of that is in our scholarship participation guide that we highly encourage all schools to keep at their fingertips at all times. Schools may not discriminate against students with exceptionalities during the admissions process. We've received a lot of calls where the schools kind of want to see the student before they enroll them, but they have to make sure that they do not discriminate against the students. Schools are required to accept the grade of the sending school for all students awarded a scholarship. We ask schools to send in notice of intents, so they tell us what grades that they have open, so that is programmed into our system, so that's how that's followed. Students that were on the waiting list for this year but did not get placed, they must reapply. And again, always keep note, we have to always look at Bulletin 133, Chapter 3. It governs this program 100%. So next, this is just a diagram of how a student needs to know if they need to apply for the scholarship again each year. We get a lot of calls from parents where they're just not sure, as well as schools. So in case you can't see it, at the top, is your child already a recipient of the Louisiana Scholarship Program? If yes, is your child intending to continue at the same school for the 2022-2023 school year? If it's yes, okay, you do not need to fill out an application. Your school will contact you in the spring to complete registration. That means that they're a rollover student. They're not in terminal grade or anything like that. So, is your child intending to continue at the same school for the 2022-2023 school year? If no, is this because your child is at the highest grade at that school? If it's yes, okay, you will need to complete an application because that means your child is in a terminal grade and they're going to a new school. If no, is this because you want to transfer to a different scholarship school? If it's yes, okay, you're going to need to complete the application. So then we'll go here. Is your child already a recipient of the Louisiana Scholarship Program? If no, is your child a resident of Louisiana? If yes, for the 21-2022 school year, is your child attending a school that received a C, D, F, or T on the most recent report card? So that's the letter grades of all the schools as well as T for the terminal grade. So, or is your child enrolling in kindergarten next year? If yes, is your family household income less than the 250% of the poverty guidelines? If yes, your child will need to complete the application. So, is your child a resident of Louisiana? No, sorry, you're not eligible for the scholarship program. For the 2021-2022 school year, if your child did not attend the C, D, or F, or T school, then your child will not be eligible for the scholarship. Is your household income less than the 50% of the poverty guidelines? If no, sorry, you're not eligible to participate in the program because they have to fall within the guidelines to be able to participate in the program. So next, Application process eligibility. Applicants will be, number one, current scholarship students in the highest grade at their school or transferring to another school. Number two, they must be current K through 11 students at a public school with a C, D, F, or T grade on the 2019 report card, and children entering kindergarten for the first time. All new applicants must meet the income and residency requirements. So the application process, student match lottery. So we try to honor family choice. Families rank schools in order of preference, and LDOE conducts random lotteries. So number one, how we try to make sure that everyone gets a chance at a scholarship. Number one, student transferring from a closing scholarship school. If we have a student that's moving from a closed school, we try to definitely give them priority so that we can replace them. We had 2 schools that announced closure in Orleans Parish in the last 2 weeks. So we are working to ensure that those families have a seat of choice for next year. Yes.
I have 2 schools that are closing that have scholarship students. And in the past, we worked with families end up not in a Catholic school, even if they put a Catholic school at the top of their list to transfer to on one app. So for our families, in order to honor their first choice, we would like to do what we've done in the past, and we would like to work with you guys directly to complete those transfer forms.
Okay.
So they don't have to go back into the lottery.
And to my knowledge, we have already done that.
With Ingrid? Okay,
Yes, we've already taken care of that.
Thank you.
We're on top of it.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so, number 2, current non-public, school early development, which is the NSECD students, if applicable, only applies to students applying to the same school they attended while enrolled in the NSECD program. Number 3, siblings of current scholarship students. In order to link students as siblings, all siblings must be listed on the application. A lot of parents call us, or a lot of schools call us to say, hey, this student has 3 siblings, but they didn't get linked. But if they're not listed on the application, we have no way of knowing that they're related. So that definitely poses a problem, once we're starting to place students. Okay, current scholarship student applicants that are in a terminal grade, applicants attending a D or F public school, or students transferring from a sanctioned scholarship school, applicants attending a C school, and applicants residing in the same parish as the school if the school chooses to offer a geographic preference. And last, current scholarship students who wish to attend a different scholarship school. So we put all those preferences in place so we can try to get all the students placed in the most effective manner possible. So we're very happy with the way, it was a little rough last year, but I think we've worked out the kinks, so we're okay with that. Okay, next. Currently, schools are not prioritized in the lottery. Priorities are at the same as at the student level. Fairness and transparency for all families across the state, and NSECD participation assists with kindergarten placement. So we try to make sure that we include that department and making sure that we know all of the kindergarten students ahead of time. Pre-K students ahead of time, so we can make sure that they're marked in the system as K. Yes.
So I have 2, one new high school who will be participating in the scholarship program. The priority is not at the school level, but the students who are currently at the elementary school on scholarship, they will have that priority, number 4, because they're in a terminal grade at their school. So they would likely receive an award to go to that high school before a student coming from a public school. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. As long as we have the funding and don't run into what we ran into last year, yes. All right, let's see. The EIO team is looking into how we might consider availability of choice options and school performance as incentive to include in the C priority. So we are definitely working toward that. I know we've had some emails about people that live in the rural areas and things like that. So we're trying to work through that to see how we can work that into our priority listing. So next, let's talk about the application process improvements. Okay, improving timeliness of awards. This time we did run into a few little kinks in the road, but think we have all that worked out going forward for the 2022-2023 school year. We're partnering with the Louisiana Federation of Children for incomplete applications. They are actually reaching out to the parents to say, hey, your application is incomplete. We need you to come into our office and we need you to get it complete so that we can get that application approved so that it can possibly make it into the lottery. Building out of redundancies in data verification. We have a lot of data that come into our office that we have to look at, review, and a lot of it is very repetitive and it's redundant. So we're trying to work our way through that. Parent information sessions. We had our first one this year. It was great. So the parents was able to get on the Zoom call and they were able to ask questions so that they can receive a point of clarification for things that they just did not know. So we found that that worked very, very well. And mandatory school training. Very, very happy with that as well. We had a webinar for our schools as well. I think almost all of our schools participated. They was able to ask questions. We gave them various guidelines. We encouraged them to keep their PowerPoint presentation at their fingertips because it answered a lot of their questions that they didn't have to email our office or call into our office for. So very, very happy with that. Okay, is that it? That is it for me. Any other questions?
I just want to compliment you. This is the clearest application process that I've ever seen for this.
Thank you.
And I can follow it, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. We are working to try to make sure that we can get everything as streamlined as possible so that everybody can understand it and we don't have, a lot of problems. So I appreciate that. I thank you all so much.
Thank you for your response.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any opposition? Okay. Move on to standing items, standards and guidelines governing non-public schools. I need a motion to receive. Lisa, second, Kimberly. Who's on?
Study studies.
Oh, I'm sorry. My right-hand person.
Good morning. Sharon E. Case, Deputy Assistant Superintendent of Academic Content. I'm going to talk to you about social studies, particularly our standards revision process this year. So before we talk about where we are today, we're going to take a little time trip to talk about why we're here and the timeline for the past year, just to update everybody. So if you're asking yourself the question, why are we doing this and why are we doing this now? Our current social studies standards were last reviewed and revised in 2010-2011. And if you look at Bulletin 741, it states that our standards really need to be reviewed and revised every 7 years. So, I don't come to my role from a math background, but if I did, even I could do that simple math. It's past time and we need to make sure we do that review. So when we were walking through the review, we went to Betsy in December of 2020 and said, hey, it's time to do this review. This is a bunch of feedback we've gotten about the 2010-2011 standards over the years. And with that feedback, we really came up with some revision goals. So you can see those on the slides. But basically, we want to make sure the standards shift toward an approach that balances that acquisition of knowledge and disciplinary skills. We want to make sure and create a more coherent sequence of content and really strengthen that work at the elementary level. And lastly, we want to make sure we better integrate historical perspectives of all people from all different backgrounds. So that's what's the goals of this process, set out by Betsy in December. So now's our history trip. So we're going to have a whole timeline of where we were a little bit over a year and how we got there. Before we dig in, this entire review process was really surrounded by these guiding principles. First, diversity perspective. We wanted everybody in the committees working on these standards to make sure they're representative of the student population in Louisiana. The second one is public input. As much as possible and as often as possible, we wanted to create opportunities for public stakeholders to weigh in on each and every standard in all parts of the process. All right, a lot of text on the slide and we'll walk you over, but you can see this is our trip down history lane. Like I said, December of 2020, we first went to Betsy with the review for the standards, and Betsy voted to review these social studies standards. So that told us, hey, on December 18th, we released an application for teachers, educators, public stakeholders to serve on the steering committee and work groups to review the standards. We release it through media, social media, news releases, all kinds of various ways. So we took in applications, and between February 1st and March 5th, 8 LDD staff members reviewed those applications. We got 328 applications. It's really great. And then we went to Bessie in March, and with a list of the committee members and the work group members, and Bessie approved those. So then once we had our committees, we went into our first committee meeting in March, and then the content work groups and started working asynchronously on standards throughout March, all the way to September. And then we had we went to April, our first steering committee deck, and we posted all of our committee materials in the standards review committee library. So throughout this time, we have our content work groups working furiously, asynchronously all these standards. We went to Summit last year with a presentation, an update on the standards review process. All of our materials we did continue to draft and post in the standards review committee library. This June, we had our second steering committee member on June 26th. We had our meeting, and then we posted those materials. Then we got to July, and we were notified we rescheduled that meeting. Our July 31st meeting was initially going to happen, but due to the public feedback that we got in June, we decided to take more time and really make sure we had time to refine those standards. So then we had our third committee meeting in September, and the committee voted to endorse those revised standards. Throughout the months of October and November, that's when we opened those revised standards to public comment via online portal. We took in public comment for those 2 months, and then went to Bessie in December to present a summary of that public comment. At that time, Bessie asked the department to please consider that public comment and refine the standards and come back to them in March. So over the last year and how we've gone through this process and where we are now, we're in the current period where we're refining the standards based on public comment with plans to go to Bessie in March. So now let's move forward, right? We're eventually going to get to March. Everything on this slide is all depending on Bessie's approval of the standards in March. So next year, if the standards get approved in March, will be a learning year, right? And so you can see we're going to present resources and professional development throughout that year. In conjunction with us, we're going to be updating the standards, also the assessment. So you can see the transition of the assessment aligned to our old standards to the new standards after March. So spring 2023 will be the final administration of the social studies assessment grades 3 through 8 aligned to the 2010-2011 standards. And then implementation of the new standards will happen in 23-24 with field testing of those new standards that year in grades 3 through 8 and a high school not U.S. history, but civics assessment. And then the subsequent year, that assessment would be operational. Yes, sir.
This is kind of personal curiosity, I guess. How much refining will come from the public comment, do you think? I don't know if you know how to answer that, but did you get significant and good public comment on some of this stuff that will be incorporated in this?
That's a great question. Honestly, we got a lot of public comment. Public was really interested and weighed in everything from specific content, right? Here's some additional examples.
Right, which I'm sure ranged, as far wide as you can imagine.
Yeah, all kinds of. We should include this example, or this should be at this grade, or everything from, I really think, this additional learning about this tribe, or any different. We got a large range of public comment. Yeah. Great question. So this is the transition from adoption of the standards and implementation across the assessment. And just to give a little more information about what we consider happening in the learning year, we have a whole year to work with teachers to really understand the new standards, and we want to take the opportunity to support them the best way that we can. So we're going to develop crosswalk documents where we look at these 2011 standards, look at these new standards, where there's continuality, where are the changes, Where are the parts where teachers are gonna need to dig in? We're gonna think through a transitional plan where content is moving in different grades, so we need to think through the student progression. Or what happens if the content moved to grade level and the students are moving up, what's gonna happen in those transition years? We'll provide professional development sessions through teacher summits and webinars throughout the year, and also the instructional frameworks to really have teachers dig into that content. Additionally, we're thinking through with all of our literacy work, some social studies, strategy 1 pages, how to support that integration of literacy and social studies as well. All right, so that was looking backward and looking forward. Really where we are key right now is refining the standards on public comment and going to March. And then looking for a really enriching learning year to help teachers understand the standards so they can implement it next year.
Can I ask a question?
Yes?
On the Teacher Leader Summit, last year, I think we received 2 or 3 places, and I have 2,000 teachers. So I'm concerned, will you have online opportunities, maybe on-demand online opportunities, so that our teachers can look at?
Yeah, that's a great question. Last year, we did it in-person and virtual summit options. This year, it's going to be in person. But through the professional development of the school year, it won't just be summit. We'll be doing online webinars that'll be open to you.
Okay, so you won't take the presentations you're making and have those available, like on demand, so that our teachers, because our teachers don't, by and large, don't get to go to.
Yes, so what we'll do is we'll redeliver some of those sessions throughout webinars throughout the year and then go deeper. So we'll have summit, but also ongoing through the year. It really is a learning year, and especially for some grade levels where the content is changing, we know that teachers really not.
They're gonna need it. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
I agree.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Any opposition? Okay, we're moving on to consideration of an updated report provided by Mr. Daphne. I need a motion to receive the report. Mr. Carroll, second, Dr. Baker.
Good morning.
Morning.
It's great to see everybody. In the Ombudsman report, what I would like to share with you this morning is a super app update in terms of the guideline and timelines for the 22-23 school year. As you know, we are kind of going back to how we used to implement the super app application. So therefore, LEAs, as well as you all, will now have a little more time like we used to get documentation in. But one of the things that I do want to stress is that we continue to encourage our schools to please meet the deadlines. We have been through that whole process of without the non-public information that holds up the LEA's application. It is not just a separate section for that non-public. This is in the overall school district's budget, EGMS application. So, you've already been doing a great job. Between October 22 and January, between October and January, you have done your first counts, did your family income surveys, the official free and reduced lunch reports data, the intent to participate forms, and the 2021 budget reviews. For January, April, you are now looking at having timely and meaningful consultations. This is the time for the affirmations of consultations to be signed, as well as if you did not do the intent form earlier, you are welcome to do it at this time. But continue your budget reviews, because you always want to stay on top of where am I and how much do I have in Titles 1, 2, 3, and 4 if applicable. keeping in mind that Title I is for the LEA, to provide you services, but you still stay abreast of what is going on. When we look at that, and looking at April through May, this is when you have to do those needs assessments. This is when you get to work with your leadership team and teachers to determine what is it and what is going to be our focus. So that's what your needs assessment for Titles II and IV should be about, as well as the contracts that you think you need for the upcoming school year. Be sure to work with the LEA to do that Title I evaluation. This is where you were saying, okay, when they present to you, this is what happened at the end of the year, this is where your students are, this is what we did, you're looking at the data, you want to disaggregate it, and you want to say, hey, you guys, do you think what we've been doing is working? Or if you feel you want to add additional input, this is your time to do so. You want to finalize the budgets around this time so that you know exactly what it is. If there are allocations, or as you say, funds, left over, then you need to complete that carryover form to submit that to the LEA to discuss it, to get approval, or if the LEA says no, to find out why. If I need it, to contact me, and the LEA knows the same thing as well. What I want everyone to keep in mind is May 31st through June, the LEAs have to get their budgets in. So that means they've got to have those needs assessments. They have to know what it is that you're going to want so that they can put it in the overall budget. And then on June 24th, the deadline for the LEA's submission for the Super App is exactly that date. They are getting it in, so everything needs to be there. Any questions on that?
Ms. Daphne, I believe that you handed out an update and
Yes.
the last date has changed to June 24th?
Yes. The last day, I apologize, on your handout that I gave you, the date for the Super App submission was decided upon after the report was submitted. So on your handout, you will see the updated section June 24th. And also I did email the updated handout to you guys. In terms of reminders, please know that the full conference agenda is what we use to determine the Title II professional development reimbursement. It is not based on individual teacher and what the teacher or the administrator or you as a superintendent would decide to see. It is based on the overall full agenda and not the agenda at the glance as well. Also, the non-public Title I allocations are still based on counts of families and from families that are in the lower socioeconomic status. So we do realize that we have schools now where everyone eats free. But when it comes to Title I, we still have to have those counts that represent the low socioeconomic status families in the schools. Because of course, those that are above that, being middle class or class sections of the economic system, would not count. Many of you have reached out to us about IDEA contacts. I've shared it with some of you that it is. Mary Jordan, who has been very helpful, she asked me to share these other two emails as well. If it is IDEA policy, the data for reporting, send it to specialeducation@la.gov. If it is about IDEA instructional support, please send it to diverse learner support at la.gov. Any questions? I've reached out to most of you, so again, I want to say Happy New Year. We're going to make 22 better. Let's hope everything revolves itself again back to how it used to be. Except I think we're gonna be getting a COVID shot like we get the flu shot. But thanks always for your leadership and dedication. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Our next item, oh, any opposed, I'm sorry. Forgot to ask because nobody opposed. Our next is consideration of an update report regarding educator certification. Oh, motion to receive, I was looking to see. Lisa Patrick, second. Renell, Dr. Renell. Certification? Yes. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're ready for certification?
Yes.
Good morning, my name is Paula Bell. I'm the Deputy Director of Certification. I work with Christy Ballou and I'm standing in for her today because of scheduling conflicts. I have information to present to you about our certification office. We are part of the Legislative Affairs Policy and Educator Workforce Support Team. We do monthly webinars. We encourage you to check those out. They are on the school system support calendar. We have it linked in this presentation that you can go on, and it'll import the meeting into your calendar so as to send you a reminder. The calls are normally held about the third Monday of every month at about 10 a.m. Use the support calendar, add those to your calendar, and the calls can be joined using the link. We do it via Zoom, so you're welcome to join us. I understand that it has been quite some time since a certification update has been presented to the group, so there is quite a bit of change. We want to encourage you to continue to use our online portal, Teach LA Live, to submit your certification applications on behalf of your employees. Also bear in mind that legally we have to have those applications dated within 90 days of submission. So if you sit with your staff and review applications, say at the beginning of the school year, but you don't get those submitted till later, they will be denied legally. These are legal documents. They have to be signed within 90 days of submission. So what happens when you submit one that maybe is missing an item? We strive to clearly outline the requirements of those applications, but what if you submit one and you forget a transcript, or you forget a copy of the Social Security card? We allow 90 days to resubmit that missing item without requiring a new application or a new fee. Just submit that declination letter along with the missing items as a new case, and then we'll continue processing with no additional paperwork. If the missing item is submitted after the 90 days, then we have to start from scratch. A new application fee, that sort of thing. A new application processing fee would be required. Incomplete applications where they're missing multiple items. We've handled those. Our staff has input them into our data system, and we've provided a formal response. It is considered processed. We may not have been able to grant certification, but we've touched and handled that application, and it is processed. And the new application processing fee would need to be submitted afterwards. So we've got a lot of policy changes that we have worked through with Bessie. Some of those include program approvals. Now this is in regards to teacher preparation. So our universities, our private providers preparing our teachers have redesigned their programs. And so there have been some extensions given to individuals who are enrolled in those old programs. This is more or less a situation where the educator is going to work with their university or the program provider to ensure they complete before these deadlines. The old alt teacher prep program requirements prior to the redesign, they had until August 31st to complete those in 2021. But Bessie allowed some extensions for some of those programs. And so you will see that they have until August 31st, 2022. Candidates completing old undergrad programs prior to the redesign have until August 31st, 2022 to finish those. A few programs, again, were granted extensions, and those students have until August 31st, 2023. The redesigned program requirements are listed in Bulletin 743 and 740, Section 743 and 745 of Bulletin 996. This is more or less information regarding the universities and those teacher prep programs. Super scores. So state law requires a credentialing exam, praxis. We have, Bessie has given us the authority to substitute or accept ACT and SAT scores if scored high enough to replace Praxis 1, that's your basic skills of reading, writing, and math. We want to stress to you that we are not allowed to use super scores. Super scores are where they take the test, the teacher candidate takes the reading part, the math part at different dates, and then they combine their highest scores earned on all those sections. We are not permitted to use those, so just be mindful of that. If they do not, school administrators, school system administrators, you have a special access through what we call human resources authenticated accounts. We set those up for you and your staff who help you handle those certification matters. If you have changes in your staff, there is a human resource authenticated user signature form. It's part of the application list there to you. Download it, sign the form, give us their email addresses, send it in to us. We can schedule an office hours to transition those accounts so that you don't lose any of the history for those certification applications. So Bessie has given us a COVID waiver, if you will. When moving through the level 1 issuance and practitioner license renewal cycles in the fall of 2021, it was brought to our attention that much of that policy regarding mentoring and those PLs was left out in those and should have been part of that larger COVID waiver. So what they allowed us to do is they granted us a waiver that's through June 30th of 2022. For example, you have someone in a teacher prep program and for whatever reason they weren't mentored or assigned a mentor during the time of their residency. Bessie will allow us to still issue their level 1 under this waiver through June 30th, 2022. So we're bringing more policy to them January, March to clarify all of this and to align Bulletin 746 and Bulletin 996 where your programs are. So we're going to straighten out that policy. So we have the Appeals Council. If you're familiar with this, when a teacher is denied certification, they have the right to appeal under certain circumstances. And the Appeals Council can consider granting them that certification under those exceptions allowable in law. The council meets 4 times a year. It's made up of 9 representatives from our universities, our school systems, our superintendents groups, and they meet 4 times a year. These are the dates that they are meeting. We have the application for an appeal on our website available to the public. Bear in mind, they first have to be denied. Even if one knows, oh, I'm not going to qualify because I don't have 3 effective ratings. Even if they know that already, they have to receive an official declination from our office. Then they can appeal. The appeals packets for these meetings are submitted to our office via the certification appeal@la.gov email. Make sure they spell certification right and there's no S on appeal. 1 month before the date of the meeting. It gives us time to review, see if we can work it to where they don't have to appeal, and then to get it authorized onto the agenda for this meeting. I'm gonna pause a moment. That's a whole lot of information and there's a whole lot more to go. Do we have any questions yet?
Is there any non-public school representation on the appeal committee?
I do not know that. I do not think so, actually. That's a great question. We have the law, the certification law, they designate which groups have to be represented. And you know, I don't think there is a representative, but that's a very good point.
Well, we have non-public universities, so you know, you could double dip like that.
Yes, and we may have some of those on there. We've recently had, they serve a certain period of time and then they phase out, then we replace them with nominations from those organizations. So the Appeals Council agenda will include these folks' names, and I'll be glad to send that to you all, maybe our last minutes, so you can see who is currently serving and who we can liaison with to
Make sure that.
represent our non-public friends. Yeah.
Thank you.
So there have been some ETS exam changes. ETS, Educational Testing Services, sometimes they phase out old exams and they institute new ones. Bessie has to approve that transition. So we have a few that will be phased out. We'll discuss those in a future slide. But most praxis tests increased by $10 a test, $4 per subtest. They are offering free interactive practice tests with every registration, whereas they used to make them pay for that. And they already provide other home options, tested home options now with COVID. That really brought that to the surface and gives them those options to test from home. And test regeneration is constant. There's a lot of changes. We do post the praxis exams that are currently adopted by Bessie and the cut scores on our website, praxis chart. I keep it right by my desk because we frequently have questions about that. It is updated. You can see our revision date at the bottom of the chart, so you'll know you've got the most recent. So August Bessie updates. As previously communicated, a complete overhaul of Bulletin 746 was completed. It was massive, almost everything. It was repealed and then reestablished. The new bulletin was reorganized. Some of it was renumbered. So some sections were approved as emergency rule, and then there were other parts that were out for notice of intent. Those that were authorized as emergency rule, we were able to implement them immediately. Those things that are out for NOI are upcoming. You'll see those posted in the new Bulletin 746 when that's uploaded to the Bessie website. There are various reasons for the policy changes. Some of them were substantive. They were major. They were barriers to certification, and we wanted to remove those as much as possible within law while maintaining a high quality teacher supply. Policy consistency and clarity changes. You know, sometimes there's little, the way things are worded appears one way in one section and another section, and they may seem to conflict, so we tried to straighten that out. And then technical issues or corrections, you know, commas, indentions, that. So those things that went for emergency rule, we've implemented them. They're in place now. We had a middle school math exam change. It's now 5164. Went into effect September 1st of 2021. We had our high school math exam changed to 5165. And it also went into effect September 1st. There are some overlap with the old exams. If you look at our praxis chart, you'll see which ones are still accepted and when those will be phased out. We have the mentor teacher assessment series. Instead of, I think it was 4 or 5, we decreased the number of assessments down to 2. Content leader assessments were also reduced to 4 for the content and 3 for our interventions. Exam exemption. I mentioned the ACT, SAT waiver. That is in place for the reading, writing, and math. And here's something that is fairly new and a bit confusing. If our teacher candidates have a graduate degree and it is not their teacher preparation program, say they got a master's in curriculum or leadership or something, they can use that graduate degree outside of education to waive Praxis 1. So that is something in place that we allow for certification. Additional emergency rule. Policies, non-practicing is made available to all certificate types. If you recall, non-practicing is where we freeze the validity on a license. Someone leaves the profession, they move out of state. We freeze that validity to preserve it. That's called non-practicing. It was very restricted as to which types that's opened up, and we can use it for multiple certificate types. Bear in mind that non-practicing was put into place because of Act 54 and effectiveness with Compass. That was implemented by the state on August 1st, 2012. So you can't retroactively freeze a certificate beyond that date, even if they had validity back then. So medical excuse clause, it used to only be in our non-public T section of policy. That is now used for all certificate types, that medical excuse policy, for whatever reason, PL renewals. That's where we see it most, is for the PL renewals. Clarification that OS experience must be prior to the issuance of the OS to be used for exam exclusion. State law allows them to waive practice if they were prepared as a teacher in another state. They come to Louisiana. We don't want to make them take all these exams if they have already jumped through those hoops in their previous state. So we allow what's called praxis exclusion. They have to have 3 years of successful experience verified prior to that OS being issued. Then a year successful here in Louisiana, the state waives praxis and we move them up to the level certificate. This is one thing that was a huge barrier for certificates to be advanced. The policy used to read that they had to have 3 years of experience in their area of certification. Well, as you know, sometimes the English teacher has to teach a block of social studies or what have you, and they aren't teaching in their area, or maybe they're teaching on an OFAD. Well, because they were teaching something in a different area, they were being prevented from advancing that certificate. That has been removed from policy. It's just that they have to have 3 years of successful teaching in any area, and then we can advance that certificate. Same with our out-of-state superintendent and educational leader, that in that area of certification was removed for issuance of those certificates. We frequently see the word lapsed, certificates lapsed. Expired and lapsed are two different things. Lapsed is when they've allowed a series of 5 consecutive years, 5 consecutive years not serving in education or teaching. In the past, they were required to take 6 semester hours to reinstate that certificate. That has gone by the wayside for our level 1, 2, 3 Compass renewable certificates. Because of that, the only ones required or considered lapsed of disuse are those lifetime certificates, your type A's and B's. So those are the only ones that have to take that reinstatement coursework. We removed type C and B certificate policy because we don't issue those anymore. We do issue the A because it is a matter of advancing. Say you had an old type B, you would still advance your teacher to the A. So we have the additional emergency rule. Practitioner license submissions are now done by the program provider. So we've removed that responsibility from you as the employer. It is done through their university or through their provider. You will have to work as a liaison with them to indicate your intent to employ them and make sure that you work with the provider to ensure there's a mentor assigned to the teacher. So there's redundant language that we removed. We have TA, Gpa Flexibility, TAT. That's the temporary authority to teach. This is for someone who's not done teacher preparation. You want them in the classroom, but they had a 2.1 GPA. We've removed that and aligned it with our practitioner license requirements so that they can have that flexibility. You would do an interview process and attest to the fact that the GPA is flexed out, if you will, by way of this interview. TAT renewal is contingent upon effective evaluations and 2 attempts of all exams required to get into a program. Remember, a TAT is just like a lever to get somebody into the profession. It gets their feet wet, and then it directs them to practitioner's license to get into the program. So they need to be taking those exams and be, mentored and guided. OFAC code extensions from 2020 were codified in policy. ECACS, that's the Early Childhood Ancillary Certificate. I don't know that you all deal with that much. It's for our early learning centers. There was some policy allowances in there for that. block hours and credit hours for renewal for those ECACs. Bear in mind, if you ever see an ECAC, that's an ancillary early childhood. That's not someone who's gone through teacher preparation. They are being authorized to serve as a teacher in a publicly funded learning. So the PL application, that's part of the policy changes. They're coming from the provider. We do ask that you work with them to get that intent to employ. It's a one-page form saying, hey, we want to hire this person contingent upon them getting into this program. It is there on the portal for you to download separate from that PL app since you no longer are responsible for applying for the PLs. With those PLs, the providers need to send us a plan of study. That intent to employ, that's the piece that you would touch. And they need to be mentored their first year on that PL. So the HR users, you all have access to that intent to employ. Don't worry about the PLs anymore. Those are coming from the providers. You won't even see that application available through your authenticated account. Additional emergency rule, we have allowed for uncertified non-public educators with 2 effective local evaluations to serve as a mentor, teacher, and content leader. So this is really great. It now provides a pipeline for you all to have effective teachers in your systems to mentor these folks. It opens that up for you all to have those PL people in your schools. Child Nutrition Program Supervisor Provisional and Acting Policy was updated to match federal guidelines. School counselor and school librarian, also, those are renewable under the law with effectiveness. School librarians defined in Bulletin 130 are truly just, they're teachers. So they're also evaluated for effectiveness. School nurse, we had some strange language with school nurse. We have the type C, the B, the A. The type C is your new nurses coming in to serve in the schools. They would advance to the type B after they had some experience. We just keep renewing that. But there were situations where these individuals would never earn a bachelor's degree in nursing. Some do. If they do have that BSN, we go ahead and advance them to the type A school nurse, and it's renewable every 5 years. But they do not have to advance to it. They can remain on the type B and renew it with their RN license every 5 years. So that's what we had to clear up. Then we have our CTTIE, this is our career in tech ed. The whole thing has been overhauled. We've tried to streamline it with the career in tech ed office. The whole application has been reworked. We have different zip codes and areas of certification. We tried to bring it in alignment with the level 1, 2s, and 3s so they could renew them in advance. Deaf or hard of hearing terminology was updated. It's funny because we've gone full circle. In my career, it was, called one thing and now it's something else. Well, now it's deaf or hard of hearing terminology, so be mindful of that. Mild, moderate, add-on requirements. There was some content exams back when No Child Left Behind was around. They had to demonstrate content knowledge. Well, that's still in policy. So even though they're teaching special ed students, they have to demonstrate content knowledge through that exam. So hold on, let's see. Counselor add-on policy. Let's see, computer lit policy to include OS as an option for the add-on. For some reason, they couldn't add it on to an OS. Now they can. Update school counselor to have renewal aligned with the law and reducing that teaching experience for ed leader certification from 5 years down to 3. So they don't have to be a teacher, but just 3 years. And then we can consider ed leadership certification. That's all of the emergency rule stuff. Do we have any questions regarding the policy changes so far?
I would note to all of you that all of these hyperlinks are in board docs. So if you need to go straight to any of these applications or lists or policy, the hyperlinks will be active in the backup in board docs.
We've worked diligently to ensure that those links are active and they're pointing in the right direction. They changed the link to Bulletin 746 and it was broken, but we fixed it in all of those locations.
And if you have any trouble with any of those links or access to information, you're always welcome to reach out.
We'll be glad to help.
Their office.
Sure. So processing protocol changes, we have defined it now. It's not just throw an application in and see if it sticks. We've got some guidelines for you. Requiring all applications to be completed electronically. We need no handwritten documents. We can't read many of their handwritten, so let's type it in there. Requiring 2 forms of ID. We need a driver's license and their copy of their social security for all apps. We've had questions from HR say, hey, we got their driver's license when they hired with us 10 years ago. It's expired. Is that a problem? No problem. Send in the expired driver's license. It's mainly the social to make sure that our database matches that. And then the driver's license or ID is a second form to confirm PII in different areas.
Are we using a secure portal to
Yes.
upload that? Okay.
Yes. The portal, Teach LA Live, is through a third-party vendor who is, it's secure. You got it. And OTS had to assure that when that stuff went into place. When you are applying for someone to have an add-on, they're certified in one area, you want to add another one. We encourage you to do a self-evaluation or have the teacher do the self-evaluation. We don't want them to spend their money and their time applying for something they don't qualify for, but they didn't realize it. We've got those checklists online. Encourage them to check it out, make sure they've met those requirements before submitting the application. Plan of study PL, that's for our universities. We have a new office hours process, so you all want to talk to us. Typically, me and Christy Ballou are the ones that do office hours. An hour Monday through Thursday in the morning from 9 to 10, and in the afternoon from 3 to 4. We allow you to go online and schedule 15-minute increments. We will call you at that designated time and discuss whatever certification matter you have. We also offer at this, through this service, the ability to expedite an application. This is only available to you as human resource or employers and our program providers. This is not something we can open up yet to the public as we do not have the staff. So, new appeals and email address I mentioned earlier. So the updated versions of all of the applications, because there was a major overhaul in policy, all the applications had to be reworked. So I've reworked them, uploaded them to Teach Louisiana through the portal, and you should see those September 1st, 2021. They were posted. Use the most current application. Please do not save an application to your desktop or to give it to your principals and expect them to use that because it does change. With policy, we have to change them and we need the updated application. You started putting a revision date in the bottom of all the applications so you know. I additionally put the date on the link on the website so you see that it matches. And if it changes, I try to do like a highlight on the internet or on the website to let you know that that has been changed. As of October 1st, we have to have those new application forms electronically completed, including the identification as previously discussed. We are returning old versions of applications. So if you submit one after October 1st and we get it, we've got great support staff. They just respond back with an email and say, hey, this is an old application. Please use the new one and re-upload. We're not going to take the fee because we didn't put it in our database. Just take that receipt from that other transaction, stick it into the new app, and upload it as a new case. We'll take care of it. Revision dates are there. Make sure you download the current version before you submit. Office hours protocol, there's a link in your HR portal. You can click it. It will open up the steps to make a reservation. We want you to go into the portal and let us know, who are we talking about? What case number? Is there a general topic? Put that information in there, put it in the reservation. We will call you at that time. Now, you may get a call from, I have a 225 area code. Sometimes we're here in the office. Sometimes we're working remotely still. So I think Christy has a 985 area code. But you'll know that when you reserve a time, we're going to call you on or near that time, assuming the ones before didn't go over. We're almost done, y'all, I promise. Best practices, do not include parts of applications from other application types. And you know, if you're doing an evaluation or an add-on, that's not the same as a renewal. Those are two separate applications, they're submitted separately. Make sure that when you scan them, this is crazy. We get backs of sheets that are blank. We get 25 attachments that takes us forever to download and combine. We ask that you get your teachers to combine those PDFs or combine those documents into one and upload it there for us. If they're upright, that's great, it helps us as well. Let's see. Submitting self-evaluation, we already talked about that. If you get your teachers to do the self-evaluation, don't just have them check, check, check. There's a spot for them to put the course number, because sometimes it's not clear to us, well, what course are they using to fulfill, group processes or what have you. We need to know what they're thinking so that we can do a better job as specialists to investigate. Sometimes it's not clear cut. We'll go pull course catalogs to match, and we're trying to help them without them going back and forth. But if they don't put a course number in there, we're doing it on our own. So encourage them to do that on those self-evals. 5/1/2022, eligibility letter submitted for issuance of a certificate also requires a picture ID and social security card. You've applied for, let's say, a OS teaching certificate. We've sent the person a letter saying, hey, you qualify for an OS. When your employer applies, when they request and confirm you've been hired, we will issue it, because the clock starts ticking once we hit that button. So we don't want to waste validity if they're not hired yet. So let's say they come to your school system, you hired them. All you need to do is take that letter that we said that they were eligible, no fee, no application. We do need a copy of their driver's license and ID uploaded as a new case, and we will issue that certificate now that you've confirmed they've been hired. Choose the appropriate category for the application that is uploaded. If you're uploading a renewal hire, choose RH from the drop down. It helps us capture what types of applications are there and how to divvy them out to our specialists. Some specialists are new. They haven't been trained on all of them. So we need to make sure to put that in the drop down menu. So additional documentation on a submission is only accepted via reply email if explicitly requested. Most of the time, this is a missing payment receipt. If we don't see the payment, support staff will send you an email, say, hey, can you just respond via email with this receipt, and we'll put it with it and process it. Only submit missing items when there's that feedback letter within the 90 days. We don't need the whole application again. Once you've submitted it and we said, oh, you're missing one transcript, just upload that one transcript. Be mindful of duplicate submissions. We try to encourage school systems to work with their educators to make sure they're not submitting stuff and the school system is submitting stuff. It slows us down and causes confusion. If you've submitted something and you think it has been way too long, we should have already processed it, reach out to us first before you upload it again, or it's going to be a mess. We're not going to know what to do with it. Cascading applications, this is where you have, say you want to certify someone as an ed leader. You want to submit that ed leader application, but wait, they only have a level 1. I need to get them a level 2 first. That's what we call cascading. They have to have the level 2 first before you can apply for the EDL. Go ahead and wait until that first application is processed for the hire, and then submit for the EDL. You can even schedule office hours, and we'll pull them together and process them together, but submit them separately. We're kicking back those applications that were submitted without appropriate fees and IDs. Follow the directions of the emails. Check your spam folders. Sometimes those emails are going to your junk mail, so check those. We're processing applications for the month of October starting November. So we're a little behind. We lost some staff. We've been able to onboard a couple of folks, but to be a certification specialist, it takes at least, I would say, at least a year and a half for them to understand all the policies. So bear with us. We're trying. Me and Christy even are processing. So if you see our names on stuff, that's what we're doing. If an application is in the unassigned queue, you can still go into your Teach LA Live account, click history at the top, and upload additional documents. Some people don't even know there's a history tab. It's at the very top of Teach LA Live. Once you're logged in, you can click there and see what's going on with your case. We're done. Question and answer.
That was a lot of information.
It is really. I mean, we have reworked all of the bulletins, so. Growing pains. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Any opposition? Okay, our last item, consideration and update, report regarding LDE portfolio opportunities. I need a motion to receive. Mr. Carroll, second. Dr. Houston. Ethan? Again, well, you double duty. You get an extra bonus.
Very good.
Yeah, go home after that. Can't get it.
All right. Okay, so today we're going to discuss LDOE portfolio opportunities updates. So on the agenda today, we have portfolio opportunities, division goals, and division and program improvements. So the first one, portfolio opportunity expectations and accountability for our scholarship programs and for our home study program. We also want to ensure quality of choice among the portfolio by creating a path forward of higher accountability for all schools. So number two, we're going to improve communication, include like the school training that we have set up, as well as the parent informational sessions. Number three, improve data quality for non-public school programming and initiatives to further improve the high-impact systems and structures of the non-public opportunities. And with that, we plan to improve data quality across all programs of both external and internal data, more automated and streamlined communication and analysis processes for non-publics not seeking state approval and non-publics seeking BESI approval. So the data quality and technology. The LDOE is building a new, more robust data portal, which is EdLink, for our C program, which is Louisiana Scholarship Program, for our SCS program, which is the School Choice Program, and for our Home Study Program. EdLink should roll out within the next 2 years, and all of the student data will live in only one place, reducing vulnerability and better reporting for schools and for the department. Okay, so we will also streamline the access to the information. It'll be in one system, improved student privacy protections, and because we're trying to get away from having like student social security numbers, so I know that they're working on that to have another identifier, so we won't have to use social security numbers or anything like that, and easier access to information for all schools. So they should have like a one-stop shop with this EdLink, so we're keeping our fingers crossed with that. Next, communication. Increased participation in our monthly calls, focused updates, discussion items, and information sharing. So for an example, for our August call, we only had 45 participants. And I was very excited for our December call, that increased to 102. So that shows that our department is doing something right to bring more schools to participate in our webinars, because we're trying to streamline the information so that we can give them exactly what they need. And it also reduces the amount of times they have to send an email or that they have to call us. So we try to give them as much information as we possibly can, and still encouraging all schools to participate on the webinars when we send out the reminders. And then a clear reporting calendar that's published online. We have our calendar that's online that we have given to all the schools. We have went over it numerous times on our webinars, where they have all the dates ahead of time. So they know Q3 is right around the corner. It starts February 2nd through February 4th. It's right there. They already have that information, so they should be gearing up to get that information in the system for Q3. So we shouldn't have to call all these schools and keep reaching out to them. Keep in mind, whenever your schools is calling our department or they are sending an email, they have to include their school code. If they're calling for like if they're locked out of leads, they need to send their username. If they're trying to get into the FTP, I need their school code. So we're trying to streamline that, not have so many deadlines due at the same time, because they get real confused. So we're trying to space out a lot of our deadlines so that only one thing is due this week, next week maybe another thing, so that we won't have 3 or 4 things that's due at one time, because they get really, really confused. But please encourage them, if they send us an email that says my account is locked, I cannot get in, we have to send them an email right back to say, what's your username, what's your school code? So if they would just include that, that would help us a lot. All right, portfolio structure of scholarship schools between 2 program staff, that's myself and Ms. Sanders. But whenever schools send in a problem, even if it's Ms. Sanders' school, I still address it, and vice versa. If it's my school, she still address it. That just helps our time. So we don't just put them on the back burner, we go ahead and address it between the 2 of us. Next, school support. Increasing involvement of non-public schools and LDO resources, as far as like with information sharing, our annual teacher leader conference, involvement in resources provided by the LDOE, increased dedicated LDOE staff members. We will be bringing on 2 additional staff members, so 2 additional staff members will be added to the team this spring. So excited about that. So that should help even more. So we are very excited about that. So that's quick. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all so much.
Our next meeting is March the 15th.
I will also say that in your packet, the meeting dates for 2022 are included there. Y'all probably already have that, but I included it again. In September 20th, yes. Those are when they're scheduled to convene. We'll probably have the 23 dates ready for you, hopefully by the March meeting.
Anything else? Okay, have a safe trip home, meeting adjourned.
And if you did not get some king cake, please do so.
Please do.